Welcome the anointed ones. When God elevates someone quietly, the world doesn't notice at first, but the enemies feel it in their bones long before anyone else does. Before you even realized it, something in your energy shifted, and let me tell you, it wasn't subtle. You didn't roar, you didn't announce anything, you didn't even change your routine. Yet suddenly, people who once hovered around you like flies on free food started disappearing like they heard a spiritual alarm only meant for them. And that's the part that gets interesting, because science even confirms this. Humans can sense a threat before they can logically identify it. It's called neuroception, the way the nervous system detects danger without conscious awareness. Your haters don't need evidence, don't need proof, don't need a reason. Their spirit registered something about you before their mind knew what to call it. And whatever it was, it made them sprint. You didn't shout, you didn't scheme, you didn't even clap back. You simply evolved. And evolution is the one thing your enemies never prepared for. See, the funny thing is, you've been focused on growing, healing, and just minding your business like a normal adult trying to survive bills, responsibilities, and the occasional person who still can't spell your name correctly. Meanwhile, the people who underestimated you are now acting like you suddenly turned into a supernatural plot twist. The same ones who used to gossip boldly are now avoiding eye contact like you owe them money. But here's the truth they're running from. Your growth exposed their stagnation. Your clarity disrupted their confusion. Your inner shift made their outer behavior look childish. They don't know what to call this version of you, but they know one thing for sure: they can't handle it. So now, as we dive into this message, understand this. You didn't become too much. They just remained too little for too long, and once the mirror flipped, they couldn't stand the reflection. Let's get into it. This is going to make everything suddenly make sense. Number 1, you're dangerous, because you don't need a crowd to confirm your identity. One of the most unsettling things about you is how you discovered who you are without needing anyone to clap for you. Most people build their confidence on approval. They need someone to tell them they're worthy, talented, or important before they start believing it. But you found your identity in quiet seasons where nobody was watching, nobody was helping, and nobody was cheering. You learned to stand on your own voice when everyone else expected you to crumble. That's why people are uncomfortable with you now. When someone's identity is self-built instead of crowd-fed, they become unpredictable. You don't operate on external validation, so you can't be controlled by it. People realize that they can't influence you by withholding support, affection, or recognition, and that alone makes you a threat to anyone who relies on manipulation. It's the independence they fear, not financial independence, not physical independence, but identity independence, the ability to know who you are even when no one agrees. You grew into someone who isn't desperate for a seat at someone's table because you already accepted that you can build your own. And that means no one can use access as leverage against you anymore. This inner strength didn't come from arrogance. It came from surviving environments where you had to choose yourself repeatedly just to stay sane. You weren't handed confidence, you forged it. And people who never did that work don't understand how you walk with such certainty. To them, confidence without approval looks rebellious. Without their validation, it looks like you're ignoring them. But in reality, you simply stopped needing their confirmation to function. Your enemies ran because they realized you can't be destabilized by their silence or empowered by their attention. You don't rise because they like you, and you don't fall because they don't. In their world, power comes from influence. In your world, power comes from identity. And that's a type of strength they will never know how to challenge, only how to avoid. Number 2, your haters run because you're no longer playing on their psychological chessboard. What makes you dangerous to people who once tried to control you isn't a loud confrontation or a dramatic display of power. It's the fact that you stopped reacting to their moves. You don't play the game they set up anymore, and that's terrifying to someone who relied on manipulating your emotions to feel bigger than themselves. For years, they tested boundaries, dropped little jabs, and watched how you would twist, turn, or defend yourself. That was their comfort zone. They knew how to predict you, how to get under your skin, and how to use your reactions to their advantage. Now, suddenly, that script is gone. You've stopped taking the bait. You've stopped giving them openings to feel important or victorious. And the thing they can't handle is that you didn't have to react to win. Every time they tried to provoke, you stayed calm. Every time they whispered lies, you didn't feel the need to shout your truth, your silence, your detachment, your refusal to engage on their level. That's the exact power move they never saw coming. They run not because you hurt them, but because they realize they no longer have influence over you. Influence was their currency, and without it, they are powerless. You've turned their own tools against them by simply refusing to be used. The energy they invested in scheming, in watching, in attempting to manipulate, is now wasted. And wasted energy is painful for people who survive off control. When you stop playing by their rules, the entire foundation they relied on to feel dominant collapses. You don't need to fight, you just exist, aligned with your purpose, unmoved by their chaos. And that's why they retreat. They can't cope with someone who is no longer readable, someone who is no longer predictable, someone who has taken the power they thought they had and quietly removed it. They're not running away from you. They're running from the realization that they can't touch the person you've become. That truth terrifies them more than any confrontation ever could. Number 3, you're dangerous because you saw their true selves before they saw yours. You became dangerous the moment you learned to read people with precision, even before they revealed themselves. While they were busy crafting masks, rehearsing lies, and performing facades, you were quietly observing, noticing the cracks in their stories, and understanding the intentions behind their smiles. You recognized patterns in behavior that most people miss, moments when their kindness was conditional or their generosity had strings attached. By the time they thought they had revealed themselves to you, you had already seen through the illusion, and that awareness made you untouchable. That's why they panic now. People rely on the element of surprise when it comes to manipulation. They expect their moves to be invisible, their deceit to go unnoticed, their gossip to land. But you saw everything coming. You didn't react in anger or desperation. You simply catalogued it, understood it, and let it fuel your own growth. They underestimated the quiet observer, the person who gathers information like armor. And once they realized you weren't playing the same game they were, fear set in. Your awareness makes you unpredictable. They no longer know which version of you they will face because they assume you are reacting to them, when in reality, you're steps ahead, anticipating their next attempt and choosing how or if you'll respond. Their strategies, once effective, now crumble because you aren't baited by illusion or distracted by deception. You didn't expose them publicly or retaliate violently. You simply became someone who cannot be fooled, someone who cannot be controlled, someone whose clarity is so precise that it forces truth out of even the most skilled pretenders. That insight alone terrifies them because it removes every advantage they ever thought they had over you. The fact is, people run from the eyes that see through their act before they ever finish performing it. You don't even have to say a word. Your understanding of them is enough to make them retreat, and that is where your danger lies, in the quiet certainty that you always knew what was real long before they had the courage to see themselves. Number 4, your presence exposes their weaknesses without you opening your mouth. Your presence alone is unsettling to the people who mistreated you, because it acts like a mirror they never asked to look into. You don't accuse them, confront them, or preach at them. Yet something about you makes their own behavior echo back at them with uncomfortable clarity. It's not that you're trying to expose them, it's that your growth, your strength, and your authenticity make it impossible for them to hide behind the excuses they once used to justify how they treated you. When someone knows they did wrong, they expect you to be bitter or broken. But when you show up healed, grounded, and unbothered, it reveals how unnecessary their cruelty was. You're living proof that they never had the power they thought they had over you, and that truth stings. It forces them to confront the fact that their actions came from insecurity, jealousy, or fear, not from anything you actually did. They are left wrestling with the reality that the person they tried to break turned out stronger, and that's the type of guilt people run from. Being in your presence makes them feel exposed because you don't have to say a word for them to remember the lies they spread, the manipulation they attempted, or the disrespect they thought you'd never notice. They feel judged without you judging them. They feel guilty without you condemning them. They feel small because they suddenly see how big your character always was. Your growth highlights their lack of growth. Your maturity makes their behavior look childish. Your stability makes their chaos impossible to deny. This is why they retreat, not because you're holding anything over their head, but because being around you makes their own conscience louder. The parts of themselves they've been avoiding, the envy, the dishonesty, the insecurity, come rushing to the surface the moment you walk in the room. They can't hide it, and they can't mask it, because your energy leaves no space for pretense. You don't expose them by speaking, you expose them by being. And for people who have spent their whole lives avoiding accountability, that alone is enough reason to run. Number 5. You've mastered the art of outgrowing people without announcing it. One of the most powerful moves you've made is outgrowing people quietly, without fanfare, without explanations, without validation. Most people announce their upgrades, post about their achievements, or try to drag everyone along to prove they've made it. You didn't need to do any of that. You simply evolved. You worked on yourself, raised your standards, and shifted your energy, and suddenly, the people who used to occupy your space felt a gap they couldn't cross. They realized the dynamic had changed, not because you told them, but because your presence now operates on a level they cannot reach. This is why they run. It's not about jealousy, at least not in the shallow sense. It's about realization. They feel the distance and know instinctively that you will never shrink to fit their limitations again. You stopped bending to meet their expectations, stopped lowering your standards to soothe their insecurities, and stopped validating the roles they thought they had in your life. You outgrew the people who could not rise alongside you, and that is terrifying to someone who thrived on holding others down to feel secure. Your elevation didn't require confrontation or dramatic exits. It required patience, discipline, and faith in yourself. You outgrew them in silence, in subtle shifts of behavior, in decisions that prioritized your growth over their approval. They didn't notice the moment it happened, but they felt its effect immediately. Your confidence, your clarity, and your calm dominance made them confront the truth they've been avoiding. They cannot influence you anymore. And here's the thing that terrifies them most. You're not looking back. You're not waiting for them to catch up. You are fully aware of your worth and operate from it. Your growth doesn't beg for recognition. It simply exists. And when someone who thrived on your limitations realizes you are untouchable by their manipulations, the only choice they see is to retreat. They run because your outgrowth is permanent, unshakable, and untouchable. And they know deep down that you will never shrink to meet them where they are again. Number 6, you're dangerous because you don't beg for clarification or closure. What unsettles people the most about you is your ability to walk away without demanding explanations, apologies, or emotional cleanup. Most people need closure to feel secure. They need a conversation, a reason, or a confession just to move on. But you learned that clarity doesn't always come from others. It often comes from observation and truth. Once someone's character becomes clear to you, that's all the closure you need. And this is exactly where your power terrifies them. People who thrive on manipulation rely heavily on you needing answers. They expect you to chase after explanations, to beg for honesty, to press for understanding. That gives them control. It gives them time. It keeps them relevant in your life. But when you stopped seeking justification for their behavior, they lost the ability to guide your emotions. You detached, and detachment is the one thing they never prepared for. Your silence isn't passive, it's decisive. It means you've collected enough evidence from their actions to understand who they are, and you no longer need them to explain anything. They can't lure you back into cycles of confusion. They can't guilt-trip you into returning. They can't keep you in emotional limbo. You've mastered the ability to let people reveal themselves and then simply adjust your distance accordingly. This makes you unpredictable in a world where most people's choices can be manipulated by emotional strings. When you stop chasing answers, you stop being predictable. When you stop being predictable, you stop being controllable. And when you stop being controllable, you become dangerous to those who once fed off your confusion. They're not running because you confronted them. They're running because you left without needing anything from them. And that level of emotional independence exposes their entire strategy. They know there is nothing left for them to use against you, no explanation to withhold, no apology to dangle, no closure to weaponize. Your ability to move forward without needing their words is exactly what makes them panic. It means their power over you was always imagined, and now they're forced to face that truth while you continue rising without hesitation. Number 7. They run. Because you refuse to carry the weight of their humanity anymore. There was a time when you carried emotions that never belonged to you. You carried the tension in people who couldn't communicate honestly. You carried the blame for situations they created. You carried the insecurities they projected onto you because they didn't want to face their own shortcomings. You became the emotional sponge for people who didn't have the courage to acknowledge their own flaws. And for a while, you did it quietly, thinking it was kindness, thinking it was peacekeeping, thinking it was your responsibility to keep harmony. But something shifted. You learned that carrying someone else's emotional mess doesn't make you strong. It makes you unavailable to your own growth. And once that realization hit, you returned all that weight back to the people it came from. You stopped accepting responsibilities that weren't yours. You stopped letting people throw their guilt, insecurities, and frustrations onto you like you were a dumping ground. You stepped out of the role they assigned you, and that's where everything changed. When someone has been using you to avoid themselves, the moment you stop absorbing their emotional chaos becomes the moment they're confronted with who they truly are. And most people aren't ready for that level of honesty. They preferred you carrying their burdens because it allowed them to pretend those burdens didn't exist. But when you withdrew, they had no choice but to face the reflection they've been running from. The insecurity, the bitterness, the fear, the lack of accountability. That's why they distance themselves now. It's not because you became cold or harsh. It's because being around you requires authenticity, and they aren't ready to be that honest with themselves. Your new boundaries expose what they've been hiding, even from themselves. You stopped cushioning the impact of their actions, and without that buffer, their true nature shows up loudly. You're not judging them. You're just refusing to carry what isn't yours anymore. That alone forces them to deal with the parts of themselves they kept buried. And for people who have made denial their lifestyle, that kind of truth is unbearable. So they run, not from you, but from the weight of their own humanity finally returning to their hands. Number 8, you're dangerous Because you turn every attack into a skill set. The people who tried to hurt you never expected their attacks to become the very tools that would strengthen you. They thought their betrayal would break you, their gossip would silence you, and their rejection would weaken you. Instead, every blow they delivered became a lesson you mastered. Every disappointment became a blueprint for how to move differently. Every time they underestimated you, they unknowingly upgraded you. They weren't training you on purpose, but life used them as unwilling instructors. The truth is, you didn't grow despite the pain. You grew through it. The lies they told sharpened your discernment. You learned how to read motives, not words. You became skilled at sensing tension beneath politeness, manipulation hidden inside favors, and jealousy masked as jokes. That kind of awareness can't be taught in peace. It's crafted in conflict. And now you walk with a level of insight that makes it nearly impossible for anyone to deceive you the way they once did. The losses they celebrated also strengthened you in ways they never imagined. Instead of collapsing, you built resilience. Instead of shrinking, you expanded. You developed emotional muscles people didn't even know you had. You learned how to rebuild from scratch, how to stay grounded when everything around you shifted, and how to rely on yourself when the world offered no support. They thought they were taking something from you, but all they did was clear space for your evolution. That's why they're uncomfortable now. They see a version of you they didn't intend to create. Your strength exposes their weakness. Your wisdom exposes their foolishness. Your resilience exposes the fact that their attacks had the opposite effect. And deep down, they know they played a role in building the person standing before them now. Someone they can no longer manipulate, guilt-trip, or intimidate. Your growth is their unintended punishment. They wanted to wound you. Instead, they woke up a version of you they were never prepared to face. And that's the part that keeps them running, the realization that every attempt to break you only made you sharper, wiser, and harder to touch. Number 9. You don't fight people. You outlast their strategies. Your power isn't loud or explosive, it's relentless and quiet. While others are busy trying to provoke reactions, manipulate outcomes, and pull you into their drama, you operate on a completely different level. You don't engage in chaos or seek revenge because you've learned that reacting emotionally is exactly what they want. The more you respond to their schemes, the more they feel alive, powerful, and in control. But you don't give them that satisfaction. You simply keep moving forward, letting time and your focus do the work for you. That's what makes you dangerous. People who rely on manipulation and strategy thrive when their targets can be baited into overreaction. They craft lies, rumors, and traps hoping to destabilize you. They measure their success by your flinch, your argument, your emotional collapse. But you've mastered the art of outlasting. You don't let their behavior dictate your rhythm. You don't expend energy proving them wrong or defending your space unnecessarily. You simply live in your lane, and your consistency becomes a mirror that exposes them. Eventually, their strategies collapse under their own weight. Lies unravel. Manipulations fail. Plans that depended on your participation crumble because you refused to participate. You understand that the strongest weapon against toxicity isn't confrontation, it's endurance. You let them expose themselves without interference, and the truth always comes out when someone is allowed to run unchecked by your reactions. People run from someone who can't be baited into self-destruction because they can't predict your moves anymore. They counted on chaos, but you operate from clarity. They counted on vulnerability, but you operate from self-mastery. The very thing they used to feel dominant against you, your reactions, is gone. That absence of predictable drama terrifies them because it removes the control they've always relied on. You don't fight because you don't need to. You simply outlast. And when they realize their strategies no longer work, the only choice left for them is to retreat, proving that your patience and focus are far more dangerous than any impulsive retaliation ever could be. Number 10. They fear you because you walk in truth, while they survive on illusions. People who build their identity on lies, gossip, and carefully curated performances cannot stand someone whose life is rooted in authenticity. Your truth disrupts everything they rely on. You don't shift your personality depending on who's watching. You don't perform kindness for clout. You don't pretend to be humble while secretly stirring drama. You show up as the same person in private, in public, and in silence. And that consistency makes the people who operate in shadows extremely uncomfortable. Your transparency complicates their lives because they thrive in environments where confusion gives them power. They create misleading stories, twist facts, and rely on blurred lines to remain relevant. So when someone comes along who is straightforward, honest, and unapologetically real, their entire strategy collapses. Your presence alone makes their lies harder to maintain. Suddenly, the narratives they tried to spread about you don't match the reality people see with their own eyes. And the more authentic you become, the more their illusions crack. They fear you because they can't twist your character. You live too plainly for their rumors to stick. You operate too sincerely for their accusations to gain traction. You're too grounded for their distortions to seem believable. And that terrifies them. When someone's reputation is built on exaggerations and false identities, being around a person who is genuine exposes their entire structure. This is why they run. You don't need to defend yourself to ruin their lies. Your truth does it for you. You don't need to clap back or argue because your daily behavior proves them wrong. You don't need a crowd to validate you because your character stands firm on its own. And nothing shakes a liar more than realizing their words can't overpower your reality. They survive on illusions because illusions give them control. Your truth takes that control away. It forces people to see them clearly instead of through the stories they created. And once their masks start slipping, they can't stand being anywhere near the person who unintentionally exposes them by simply being authentic. Your truth is stable. Their illusions are fragile. That's why they fear you, and why they keep their distance. Number 11. You already forgave them, and that's what frightens them most. The thing that unsettles people who hurt you the most isn't that you're succeeding or that you've moved on. It's that you've already forgiven them. And this isn't a shallow, surface-level forgiveness. It's the kind that cuts off every strand of control they thought they had over you. Forgiveness doesn't mean you've invited them back into your life, or that you've forgotten the harm they caused. It means you've returned the power they tried to wield over your emotions. You no longer feed their sense of importance with anger, resentment, or attention. You removed their leverage entirely. For someone who relied on your pain for their sense of power, this is terrifying. They expected guilt, bitterness, or obsession. They expected you to stew, to react, to replay every slight in your mind. But when you let it go completely, when you neutralized their emotional weapon, you became unpredictable in a way they weren't prepared for. They can no longer manipulate your feelings because your feelings are yours, unclaimed by them, unmoved by them, and unbothered by their presence. Nothing scares a hater more than realizing that the person they attacked feels nothing toward them. Your calm indifference, born from true forgiveness, becomes a reflection of their own weakness. Every insult, every betrayal, every attempt to provoke you loses meaning because you refuse to feed it. You don't need revenge. You don't need acknowledgement. You just exist in a state of peace they cannot penetrate. Forgiveness is power. And your power comes from detachment, clarity, and the refusal to let anyone else dictate your inner state. By forgiving, you've stripped them of their influence and left them exposed, looking for a reaction that will never come. You don't need to confront them to win. You don't need to speak to prove yourself. They fear you because the weapon they thought they had, your anger, your pain, your obsession, is gone. And once they realize it, the only move left for them is to retreat, leaving you stronger, lighter, and untouchable. Number 12. You're dangerous. Because your progress doesn't require their permission or participation. What truly intimidates people about you isn't your talent, your intelligence, or your resilience. It's the fact that none of your progress is dependent on them. They spent years trying to position themselves as the gatekeepers to your next level, the ones you'd have to impress, appease, or wait for before you could advance. They wanted to be the middlemen of your destiny, the filters you had to pass through, the validators you had to seek. But here's where everything shifted. God showed you paths they never even knew existed, hidden access points, unconventional routes, spiritual corridors that can't be blocked, sabotaged, or controlled by human hands. Suddenly you were moving, quietly, quickly, and without consulting the people who believed they owned the keys to your future. That's what makes you dangerous. Not reckless, not harmful, but untouchably independent. Your destiny doesn't pause because someone refuses to support you. Your purpose doesn't shrink because someone with an inflated ego thinks you owe them something. You rise because elevation is built into your soul's assignment, not because someone approved your application. And the moment they realized you don't need their network, their name, their favor, or their presence, panic set in. They're watching you advance down roads they can't follow, doors open for you that don't even appear for them. Opportunities find you without you begging, bending, or betraying yourself. You're moving forward with a momentum they can't slow down because it isn't sourced from them, it's sourced from God. And anything God fuels cannot be intercepted. They wanted to block your path, not realizing you were never walking through their path to begin with. They wanted to be necessary to your progression, not understanding you were designed to be unstoppable, even if no one supported you. Your independence terrifies them because it reveals a truth they've avoided. Your destiny was never in their hands, but your absence exposes how little power they actually had. You don't wait for permission, you don't beg for participation, you move, and the world moves with you. Number 13. They run because you no longer speak the language of insecurity. What unsettles people most about you isn't that you suddenly became louder, bolder, or more outspoken. It's that your confidence is no longer negotiable. You developed a kind of inner solidity that doesn't need applause, validation, or reassurance to stand tall. You aren't battling for attention or fighting for approval anymore, and that alone cuts off an entire communication channel they once depended on to control you. Insecure people thrive in environments where jealousy, competition, and subtle emotional manipulation are the norm. They understand how to operate in spaces where everyone is trying to prove something. They know how to navigate conversations that revolve around comparison. They feel powerful when they sense someone else shrinking, doubting, or over-explaining. That used to be the frequency they kept you on, and it worked as long as you needed something from them. But you outgrew that atmosphere completely. You started speaking through your alignment instead of your wounds. You make decisions based on your values, not your fears. You carry yourself with a calm conviction that doesn't rise or fall depending on who approves. To someone who depends on chaos to feel relevant, that kind of groundedness is suffocating. Your confidence exposes their instability without a single word. They feel it in the way you no longer justify yourself. They feel it in the way you no longer compete. They feel it in the way you simply exist without needing to diminish or elevate anyone else. And that's when they start to run. Not because you attacked them, but because the environment you now operate in requires honesty, humility, and authenticity, qualities insecurity cannot survive in. Around you, their masks malfunction. Their tactics fall flat. Their ego has nowhere to hide. Your presence forces them to either grow or go, and most people choose the path that doesn't require evolution. You stopped speaking their language, and without that shared insecurity to bond over, they have nothing left to hold on to. The moment you became aligned, they became exposed, and instead of rising to meet you, they chose to run from the kind of self-reflection they're not built for. Number 14. You're dangerous. Because peace is your superpower, not your weakness. People often mistake calmness for passivity, but in your case, peace is a form of leadership. It's not something you retreat into. It's something you command. Your peace isn't the kind that comes from ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It's the kind that comes from understanding your worth, your boundaries, and your connection to something bigger than the noise around you. That level of internal control is unsettling to people who depend on emotional turbulence to feel powerful. When others try to provoke you, they expect an eruption, some sort of emotional reaction that proves they still have access to your mind. But your stillness denies them that privilege. You don't rise to traps, you don't respond to every insult, and you don't collapse under pressure. You evaluate, you discern, and you move from clarity rather than impulse. That's a spiritual authority that can't be faked, and it can't be manipulated. This is why people who thrive on chaos run from you. They can't pull you into their emotional storms anymore. They can't shake your center or distract you with petty drama. When someone realizes their old tactics no longer work, the silent treatment, the guilt trips, the staged arguments, they panic. They depend on emotional instability to feel in control, and your peace destroys their entire strategy. Your calmness also reveals who they are, because without your reaction to hide behind, they're left standing next to their own behavior. They have nothing to deflect with, nothing to blame you for, nothing to twist or rewrite. Your composure forces a spotlight onto their chaos, and they can't handle how loud their dysfunction becomes when you're no longer participating in it. Your peace is powerful because it keeps you aligned with purpose and disconnected from destruction. It protects your energy, sharpens your intuition, and keeps your voice steady, even when everything around you is shaking. People run from that kind of stability because it reminds them of everything they haven't mastered within themselves. They can't influence you, and that loss of influence terrifies them. Conclusion. Everything you've seen here today isn't just a collection of truths. It's a reflection of the force you've quietly become. You've moved through life in ways most people cannot comprehend. You've mastered yourself when chaos surrounded you, grown when others tried to limit you, and elevated when people expected you to remain small. Every betrayal, every attempt to manipulate you, every lie spoken in your absence only sharpened your awareness and strengthened your character. You didn't just survive, you transformed. And that transformation is not just personal. It radiates outward, affecting the energy of everyone around you. You've become a presence that cannot be controlled, a mind that cannot be deceived, and a spirit that cannot be shaken. People run from you, not because you are loud or aggressive, but because you are untouchable in ways they've never seen before. You operate from truth, alignment, and clarity, leaving no space for manipulation, deceit, or ego-driven drama. Your growth, independence, and mastery of self are your silent power. And those who once tried to influence or harm you are now forced to confront the reality that you will never fit into their limited worldview again. Your journey proves that true power isn't about being feared or dominating others. It's about mastering yourself, turning attacks into lessons, and walking in a peace so strong that it unsettles even the most manipulative. You've done what most people only dream of. You've outlasted, outgrown, and outshined those who underestimated you, all while remaining aligned with your purpose. Your existence is now a mirror to those who can't stand the truth, and that alone is enough to make them retreat. So remember, your strength doesn't need validation. Your progress doesn't need permission. Your peace isn't weakness, and your truth is undeniable. You are walking proof that the universe rewards those who remain steadfast, authentic, and aligned, no matter what anyone else thinks or does. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss these powerful truths. Like this video to affirm your own growth, comment below, and share your experiences because your story matters, and share it with someone who needs to hear that their strength is already breaking barriers. This is more than inspiration. It's a blueprint for walking in the unstoppable power that's already within you. God bless you.